The great chamber of the Galactic Council stood silent as Ambassador Velthar of the Valerian Concordat placed a single crystal flower upon the memorial stone. The flower glowed softly, its light reflecting off the polished black surface that bore thousands of names. Human names, names of a species that no longer existed. 100 years, Velthar said, his voice echoing through the chamber. 100 years since they vanished into the dark nebula. 100 years since humanity made their last stand against the void entities to buy us time to evacuate the rim worlds. The other council members stood in respectful silence. Commander Kreshitar, his forearms crossed over his chest in the traditional salute of his people, growled softly. They were warriors. True warriors. They knew they could not win, yet they fought anyway. They saved 17 billion lives, added Syntheri Prime, the artificial intelligence that represented the machine collective. Its holographic form flickered with what might have been sadness. Our calculations showed a 98% probability of total galactic extinction if humanity had not intervened. They changed the outcome through sheer determination. Velthar turned away from the memorial, his blue skin darkening with emotion. And now we face a new threat. The Catharan hegemony grows bolder each cycle. They have claimed 40% of what was once human territory. They conquer world after world, and we seem powerless to stop them. The council chamber's large display activated, showing the current galactic map. Red zones marked Catharan-controlled space, spreading like an infection across the star charts. The territories were marked with a symbol that had once represented hope, the blue and green sphere of Earth. The Catharans know we are weak, Kreshtar said, his voice bitter. They know that without humanity's fleets, without their terrible weapons and their refusal to surrender, we cannot match them in battle. My people are warriors, but even we cannot stand against their numbers. We have attempted diplomatic solutions, Velthar replied, his fingers tapping nervously against his robes. The Catharan Supreme Commander rejected every offer. They demand complete submission, or they promise total war. Syntheri Prime's hologram shifted, displaying tactical data. Our combined fleets number approximately 40,000 capital ships. The Catharan Armada is estimated at 70,000 and growing. They have production facilities on 200 conquered worlds. The mathematics are not favorable. A younger delegate, a Valerian named Sorth, spoke up from the back of the chamber. What about the old human defensive platforms? The weapon satellites they left in orbit around key worlds? Deactivated, Syntheri Prime answered. The humans used quantum-locked systems that only responded to their DNA signatures. We have been unable to bypass the security protocols. Their technology was always more advanced than we understood. Velthar walked to the large window that overlooked the capital city below. Millions of beings from hundreds of species went about their lives unaware of the danger approaching. Perhaps that was humanity's greatest strength. They never shared all their secrets. They kept things hidden, kept improvements to themselves. We thought it was paranoia, but maybe they were just being practical. They were survivors, Kreshtar said firmly. Every species in this galaxy knows the human saying, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. They always prepared for the worst. The council chamber fell silent again as each member contemplated their situation. The peace they had enjoyed for the past century was ending. The Catharans would not stop until they controlled everything, and without humanity's military might, the council worlds would fall one by one. A soft chime interrupted the somber mood. A young technician rushed into the chamber, his face flushed with urgency. Honored council members, forgive the interruption, but the observation corps is reporting unusual readings from the dark nebula. Velthar turned quickly. What kind of readings? Quantum fluctuations, Ambassador. Energy signatures that match no known technology. The science vessel Distant Hope detected them 3 cycles ago, but they dismissed the readings as stellar anomalies. Now the readings are stronger, more frequent. Syntheri Prime's hologram flickered with interest. Provide the specific coordinates and energy spectrum analysis. The technician transferred the data to the main display. Complex graphs and numbers filled the screens, showing spikes of energy that pulsed in seemingly random patterns. This is impossible, Syntheri Prime stated, its voice carrying a rare tone of confusion. These energy signatures match void technology, but the void entities were destroyed. Humanity ensured their complete elimination before they disappeared. Could they have returned? Sorth asked, fear creeping into his voice. No, Crescitar said, though he sounded uncertain. The humans sealed the rifts. They collapsed the dimensional pathways. Nothing could come through. Velthar stared at the data, his mind racing. Something felt different about these readings. There was a pattern hidden in the chaos, a structure that seemed almost deliberate. Synthari Prime, can you analyze these patterns for any encoded information? The artificial intelligence processed the request in microseconds. There is a mathematical structure present. It is extremely subtle, but it exists. The energy pulses are not random. They are repeating a sequence. The chamber fell silent as everyone waited. The display suddenly changed, showing a simplified version of the pattern. It pulsed 3 times, then 5 times, then 7 times, then 11. Prime numbers, Velthar whispered. Someone is sending prime numbers. Not someone, Synthari Prime corrected. The transmission is using quantum markers that match old human encryption protocols. This is a human signal. The revelation struck the council like a physical blow. Crescitar's 4 arms dropped to his sides in shock. Sorth gasped audibly. Even Synthari Prime's hologram froze for a full second. That is impossible, Velthar said, though his voice trembled with sudden hope. Humanity is gone. We saw their fleets enter the nebula. We detected the massive energy releases that indicated their destruction. The data does not lie, Synthari Prime insisted. These are human quantum signatures. Nothing else in the known galaxy uses this specific encryption method. The main display suddenly flared with light as a new signal pushed through the interference. It was weak, distorted by distance and the nebula's radiation, but unmistakable. A human voice speaking in the common galactic trade language with the distinctive accent that no one had heard in a century. This is Beacon Station Outpost 7, United Nations Space Command. Authentication code Whiskey Tango Alpha 99. To any Galactic Council forces receiving this transmission. Phase 1 complete. Returning home. The message repeated 3 times, then fell silent. Velthar felt his legs weaken, and he gripped the edge of the console for support. Around him, the other council members stood in stunned disbelief. Humanity was not gone. Somehow, impossibly, they had survived. Get me every sensor array we have pointed at that nebula, Velthar commanded, his voice suddenly strong with renewed purpose. Contact every military installation. Send word to all council worlds, and someone wake up the Supreme Chancellor. Tell them that everything has changed. As the chamber erupted into organized chaos, Velthar looked once more at the memorial stone with its thousands of names. The crystal flower still glowed, but now it seemed brighter, as if responding to the news. Perhaps those names were not a list of the dead after all. Perhaps they were a promise. Humanity was coming home. The Catharan warfleet moved through space like a plague of metal locusts. 200 dreadnoughts, each the size of a small moon, advanced toward the border systems with ruthless efficiency. Behind them came thousands of smaller vessels, cruisers, destroyers, and carrier ships packed with fighter craft. Supreme Commander Jothok stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Endless Conquest, and watched the tactical displays with satisfaction. The Council worlds grow weaker with each passing cycle, he said to his second-in-command. Their defenses crumble before we even arrive. Fear has already defeated them. The Valarian fleet has withdrawn from the Arcturus sector, his officer reported. They claim they are regrouping, but intelligence suggests they are simply abandoning the outer colonies. Jothok's multiple eyes gleamed with predatory pleasure. As expected, without their human protectors, they have no spine for war. Send the ultimatum to the Galactic Council. They have 10 cycles to surrender their military forces and accept Catharan governance. If they refuse, we will burn their core worlds until nothing remains but ash and memory. The message was transmitted across all channels, a declaration of dominance that left no room for negotiation. The Catharan hegemony had waited a century for this moment. While the galaxy mourned humanity's loss, the Catharans had built their war machine in secret, preparing for the day when no one could oppose them. Far from the advancing war fleet, the Valarian science vessel Distant Hope drifted near the edge of the dark nebula. The ship was small, barely large enough for a crew of 20, and it had been assigned to study the mysterious energy readings that had puzzled the Council for weeks. Dr. Linara studied the sensor data with growing confusion. She was a specialist in quantum physics, one of the best in the Valarian Concordat, and nothing in her 30 years of experience prepared her for what she was seeing. The readings are getting stronger, she told her assistant. a young researcher named Pax. Whatever is inside that nebula, it is moving. Something massive is approaching the boundary. Pax adjusted the sensor array, trying to filter out the interference from the nebula's radiation. Could it be a natural phenomenon? Perhaps a new type of stellar formation?
No, Linara said firmly.
Natural formations do not transmit prime numbers. Natural formations do not use human encryption protocols. This is artificial, and it is deliberate. The ship's communication officer called out from his station. Dr. Linara, we are receiving multiple signals now. Dozens of them. All using the same human authentication codes. They are getting clearer as they approach. Linara rushed to the communication station and studied the incoming data. Her heart pounded in her chest as she realized what she was seeing. These are not just signals. These are identification beacons. Ship identification beacons. How many? Pax asked, his voice barely a whisper. Linara ran the analysis again, certain she had made an error. The number could not be correct. But the computer confirmed it 3 times. 40,000 registered contacts. No, wait, 60,000. The count keeps increasing. They are emerging from the nebula in formation. The bridge fell silent as every crew member stopped what they were doing and stared at the main display. The dark nebula, which had swallowed humanity's fleets a century ago, was now vomiting them back out. But these were not the scattered, damaged remnants of a defeated force. The sensor readings showed ships in perfect formation, their power signatures strong and stable. This is impossible, the captain whispered. Nothing could survive in that nebula for 100 years. The radiation alone would destroy any known shielding. Then perhaps we do not know as much as we thought, Linara replied. She opened a communication channel to the Council homeworld. This is the Distant Hope to Galactic Council Command. Urgent priority message. We have visual confirmation of massive fleet movement from within the dark nebula. The ships are using human identification codes. Request immediate reinforcement and further orders. The response came quickly, and Ambassador Velthar's voice carried a mixture of hope and fear. Distant Hope, maintain your position but do not engage. We are dispatching Council warships to your location. Can you confirm the fleet size? Linara looked at the ever-increasing numbers on her display. Ambassador, the count is now above 100,000 contacts and still rising. I do not think we have enough ships to engage even if we wanted to. Back in Council space, the various species scrambled to respond to the multiple crises facing them. The Catharan ultimatum demanded an answer, while the mysterious fleet emerging from the dark nebula represented an unknown threat or perhaps an impossible miracle. Commander Kreshitar assembled the Council's combined military forces, a fleet of 40,000 ships that represented the strongest defense the galaxy could muster. It was an impressive force, but everyone knew it would not be enough against the Catharan Armada. Still, the warrior commander refused to surrender without a fight. We will meet them at the Sigma crossing, he announced to his captains. It is a natural choke point where their numerical advantage will be reduced. We may not win, but we will make them pay for every system they take. Syntheri Prime calculated the odds of success at less than 3%. The artificial intelligence did not share this information with the organic members of the Council. Sometimes hope was more valuable than truth. Ambassador Velthar stood in the observation room of the Council's largest space station, watching the military preparations with a heavy heart. 10 cycles. They had 10 cycles to decide the fate of trillions of beings. Surrender meant slavery under Catharan rule. Fighting meant inevitable defeat and massive casualties. What would the humans do? He wondered aloud. A aide standing nearby answered quietly. They would fight, Ambassador. They always fought, yes, Velthar agreed. But they also won. We do not have their weapons, their tactics, or their stubborn refusal to accept defeat. A urgent communication interrupted his thoughts. It was Dr. Linara from the Distant Hope, and her voice trembled with emotion. Ambassador, the fleet has fully emerged from the nebula. We have completed our scans. She paused as if struggling to believe her own words. Ambassador, these are human ships. All of them. And they are not damaged or desperate. They are the most advanced vessels our sensors have ever detected. Velthar felt his breath catch in his throat. Are you certain? Completely certain. We are receiving a direct transmission now. They are requesting communication with the Galactic Council. They say they received our distress beacon regarding the Catharan threat. Linara's voice grew stronger, filled with wonder. Ambassador, they say they are coming home. Humanity is coming home. The transmission arrived at the council chambers moments later. Every screen in the facility displayed the same image. A human wearing a military uniform, her face showing the lines of age and hardship, but her eyes burning with fierce determination. This is Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Nations Space Command to the Galactic Council. We apologize for our extended absence. We have been engaged in operations that required our full attention. We understand you are currently facing aggression from the Catharan hegemony. We are here to assist. Humanity does not abandon its allies. The chamber erupted in chaos as delegates shouted questions and expressions of disbelief, but Velthar simply smiled, feeling hope surge through him for the first time in a century. Send a response, he ordered. Tell Admiral Chen that the Council accepts their assistance with gratitude, and tell her that we never stopped believing they would return. As the message was transmitted, Velthar turned to Kreshitar. Commander, you may want to revise your battle plans. I think the odds just changed in our favor. The warrior smiled, showing his sharp teeth. Indeed, Ambassador. The Catharans wanted a war. Now they will get one they will never forget. In the darkness of space, the human armada continued its advance, each ship a testament to a century of survival and evolution. They had been gone for 100 years, but they had not been idle. They had learned, adapted, and become something more than they were before. The galaxy was about to be reminded why humanity had been feared and respected in equal measure. The fabric of space tore open like paper and reality screamed. Sheets of purple and black energy rippled across the void as massive shapes pushed through the boundary between dimensions. The human fleet did not simply emerge from the dark nebula. It erupted from it like a hammer through glass. The flagship came first, a vessel so large that it defied comprehension. The UNS Indomitable stretched for nearly 20 kilometers, its hull covered in strange patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Behind it came wave after wave of warships, each one bearing designs that looked both familiar and alien. These were human vessels, but they had been transformed by a century of warfare in a dimension where normal physics were merely suggestions. Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, her hands clasped behind her back as she watched the tactical displays update in real time. 150,000 ships. That was the count after leaving 30,000 in the void to guard the dimensional gates. 30,000 more were civilian vessels, generation ships carrying the families and non-combatants who had survived the long years of fighting. Navigation. Status report, she ordered, her voice calm and measured. All ships have successfully transitioned to normal space. Admiral, the navigation officer replied. No casualties during emergence. Fleet formation is holding stable. Communications. Open a channel to the Galactic Council. Let them know we are here. As the message was transmitted, Chen allowed herself a moment to reflect on how much had changed. She had been a captain when humanity entered the Dark Nebula, commanding a single destroyer in the desperate battle against the void entities. Now she was admiral of an entire fleet, and the eager young officer she had been was buried under decades of hard decisions and harder battles. Admiral, we are detecting Catharan military vessels moving to intercept, the tactical officer announced. Their vanguard force consists of approximately 5,000 ships. They are taking an aggressive posture. Chen studied the tactical display with experienced eyes. The Catharan ships were arranged in a traditional hammer formation, designed to concentrate firepower on a single point. It was an effective tactic against conventional fleets. Against human vessels equipped with void technology, it was suicide. So the Catharans want to test us, she said quietly. Very well. All ships activate void shields. Weapons systems to stand by. Let us show them what we have learned. The Catharan Supreme Commander Zythok watched his view screens with confidence as his vanguard force approached the mysterious human fleet. 5,000 ships were more than enough to deal with whatever ragged survivors had managed to crawl out of the nebula. He would destroy them quickly, and then proceed to crush the Council worlds as planned. All vessels prepare to fire on my command, he ordered. Target their largest ships first. We will break their morale with a decisive strike. But as his ships moved into weapons range, something happened that made his confidence evaporate like vapor in vacuum. The human ships simply vanished. Not destroyed, not scattered. They disappeared completely from every sensor, every scanner, every detection system his fleet possessed. Report. Zythok roared. Where did they go? Unknown, Commander. All contacts lost. Sensors detect nothing but empty space. The answer came seconds later when the human ships reappeared directly behind the Catharan formation. They had not run. They had moved through space itself, teleporting across thousands of kilometers in an instant. Before the Catharan commanders could react, the human fleet opened fire. The weapons that struck the Catharan vessels were unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Beams of purple-black energy, the same impossible color as the void itself, lanced through shields as if they did not exist. They passed through armor plating without resistance and tore ships apart from the inside. Catharan dreadnoughts, massive vessels that had conquered dozens of worlds, simply ceased to exist as the void weapons unmade their molecular bonds. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted less than 3 minutes. 5,000 Catharan ships became expanding clouds of debris and frozen atmosphere. Not a single human vessel took damage. They had not even needed to move from their positions. Admiral Chen watched the destruction with no satisfaction, only grim necessity. Communications broadcast the following message on all frequencies. I want everyone to hear this. She stood before the camera, her uniform crisp and her bearing military perfect. When she spoke, her words carried across the galaxy. I am Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Nations Space Command. A century ago, humanity entered the Dark Nebula to fight an enemy that threatened all life in this galaxy. We did not do this because we sought glory or conquest. We did it because it was necessary, because no one else could, and because we refused to let the innocent suffer. She paused, letting her words sink in. We have returned to find our former allies threatened by a new aggressor. The Catharan hegemony has issued an ultimatum demanding submission. We have a response to that ultimatum. Humanity does not negotiate with tyrants. Humanity does not submit to bullies. And humanity never ever abandons its friends. On the view screen behind her, images of the destroyed Catharan fleet played on repeat. To the Catharan hegemony, this is your only warning. Withdraw from all occupied territories immediately. Release any prisoners you have taken. Make reparations to the worlds you have damaged. If you do not comply, we will come for you, and you have just seen how easily we can find you. She leaned forward slightly, her eyes hard as steel. To the Galactic Council and all free peoples of this galaxy, humanity has returned. We are changed. We are harder. We have seen things and done things that would break lesser species. But we are still who we always were. We are defenders. We are warriors. We are survivors. And we are home. The transmission ended, and across the galaxy, trillions of beings watched in stunned silence. In the council chambers, Ambassador Velthar felt tears streaming down his face. Commander Kreshatar threw his head back and roared with joy. Even Synthari Prime's hologram flickered with what might have been emotion. But in Catharan space, Supreme Commander Jothok stared at the empty space where his vanguard fleet had been, and felt fear for the first time in his life. He had sent 5,000 ships to test the humans. They had been swatted aside like insects. If this was what humanity had become after 100 years in the void, then the Catharan hegemony had made a terrible mistake. Recall all forward fleets, he ordered, his voice shaking. We need to consolidate our forces. Send a message to the Catharan High Council. Tell them we are no longer fighting the Council worlds. We are fighting something much more dangerous. Back aboard the Indomitable, Admiral Chen received reports from across the fleet. The Council was requesting a formal meeting. Various member species were already offering assistance and support, and deep space sensors detected Catharan forces beginning to pull back from their forward positions. Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from the civilian fleet, her communication officer reported. They are requesting permission to begin moving toward former human territories. They want to go home. Chen nodded slowly. Home. After 100 years of fighting in a hell dimension, after losing so much and sacrificing more, they were finally going home. Grant permission, but keep military escorts with them at all times. We will not lose anyone else. She turned to her executive officer, a grizzled veteran who had been with her since the beginning. Commander Hayes, prepare a briefing for the council representatives. They are going to want to know what we have been doing for the past century and what we have become. What should I tell them, Admiral? Chen looked out at the stars, at the galaxy that had mourned humanity's passing and was now witnessing their return. Tell them the truth. Tell them that we went into the void as defenders and came out as predators. Tell them that we fought things they cannot imagine and won. Tell them that we are not the same humans who left, but we are still bound by the same principles. She straightened her uniform and prepared for the challenges ahead. The war with the Catharans was not over. There would be more fighting, more death, more hard decisions. But for the first time in 100 years, Humanity was not alone in the darkness. They were home, and they would never let anyone threaten the galaxy again. The Council Station Harmony floated in neutral space, its massive structure hosting representatives from every major species in the galaxy. Ambassador Velthar stood in the main conference room, watching as human delegates entered for the first time in a century. He had expected to see familiar faces, perhaps aged versions of the people he once knew. Instead, he saw strangers who moved with a predatory grace that made his instincts scream danger. Admiral Chen led the delegation, flanked by 6 other officers whose uniforms bore insignia he did not recognize. Behind them came civilians, scientists, and diplomats who all shared the same hard look. These were people who had seen too much and survived too long in places that should have killed them. Ambassador Velthar, Chen said, extending her hand in the traditional human greeting. It is good to see a friendly face again. Velthar took her hand carefully, noting the strength in her grip. Admiral Chen, the Council welcomes humanity's return. We have many questions. I imagine you do, she replied. We have been gone a long time and we did not leave under the best circumstances. Perhaps we should start at the beginning. The conference room filled with delegates from dozens of species. Commander Kreshtar sat with his military advisors, eager to learn about human tactics. Syntheri Prime manifested multiple holographic forms to record everything from different angles. Even the normally reserved Syntheri seemed excited by humanity's return. Chen stood before the assembled crowd and activated a holographic display. Images filled the air, showing the battle that had driven humanity into the dark nebula a century ago. The void entities had been nightmares made real, beings from another dimension that fed on matter and energy. They had poured through dimensional rifts by the billions, consuming entire star systems. We knew we could not defeat them in normal space, Chen explained. Every conventional weapon we used just made them stronger. So we made a decision. We would take the fight to them, in their own dimension. We would enter the void and close the rifts from the inside. The display shifted, showing human fleets plunging into swirling vortexes of impossible colors. We lost 30% of our forces in the initial transition. The void does not follow the rules of our universe. Time flows differently there. Space is not stable, but we adapted. She gestured, and the display showed images that made even the hardened warriors in the audience recoil. Void entities, massive things of teeth and tentacles and geometries that hurt to look at. Human ships fighting them in battles that defied description. Explosions that happened backwards. Ships that existed in multiple places at once. We fought them for what felt like years, though only weeks passed in normal space. We studied them, learned their weaknesses, and developed new weapons. The void weapons you saw us use against the Catharans are based on the entity's own biology. We learned to weaponize the dimension itself. Commander Kreshtar leaned forward. How did you survive? The energy levels in that dimension should have destroyed your ship's power systems within hours. A thin smile crossed Chen's face. We stopped using conventional power systems. One of our scientists, Dr. Rebecca Martinez, figured out how to tap into the void's energy directly. We essentially use the dimension as an infinite power source. Our ships do not carry fuel anymore. They draw energy from the fabric of reality itself. Syntheri Prime's hologram flickered with interest. Such technology should be impossible. The energy fluctuations would tear your ships apart. They did at first, Chen admitted. We lost a lot of good people learning how to make it work. But humans are stubborn. We kept trying until we figured it out. That is what we do. We adapt or we die, and we refuse to die. The display changed again, showing human settlements built on floating platforms in the void. Cities that existed in bubbles of stable space, protected by shields that converted hostile energy into something survivable. Children played in parks that floated above bottomless depths filled with creatures from nightmares. We could not come back until we finished the job, Chen continued. We had to hunt down every single void entity and seal every rift. It took us 100 years. 100 years of fighting, surviving, and evolving. We had children born who never saw normal space. Entire generations grew up knowing only war. She paused, her expression softening slightly. But we never forgot where we came from. We never forgot our friends. Every ship carried a piece of Earth soil. Every child learned the names of the Council species. We told ourselves that one day we would come home. And when we finally sealed the last rift and destroyed the last entity, we kept that promise. Ambassador Velthar raised his hand. Admiral, I must ask a difficult question. Are you still human? Forgive my bluntness, but exposure to such an environment for so long must have changed you fundamentally. The room fell silent as everyone waited for the answer. Chen looked at her fellow delegates, seeing the same question reflected in their eyes. It was something they had discussed many times among themselves. That is the question we have been asking ourselves, she admitted. We are definitely changed. Our biology has adapted to handle higher radiation levels. Our reflexes are faster. We heal more quickly. Some of our people developed abilities that should not be possible, like sensing danger before it happens or communicating across vast distances without technology. She turned to face the full council, but we still laugh at bad jokes. We still cry when we lose someone we love. We still feel joy when we see a sunset, even if it is through the view screen of a ship. We still believe in protecting the innocent and standing against tyranny. So yes, Ambassador, we are still human. We are just a human species that had to become something more in order to survive. Commander Kreshtar stood, his posture respectful. Then you are warriors who have been forged in the hottest fire imaginable. My people would be honored to fight beside you. The sentiment was echoed across the chamber as various delegates expressed their support, but Chen raised her hand for silence. We appreciate your words, but you need to understand something. We did not just bring weapons and ships back with us. We brought knowledge. Technology that can change everything, and we are willing to share it, but only with those who will use it responsibly. She activated the display again, showing schematics for void shields, energy weapons, and propulsion systems that could move ships across vast distances instantaneously. These technologies are dangerous in the wrong hands. We learned that the hard way, but we believe the Council species can be trusted with them. We will provide training, support, and guidance. Syntheri Prime's hologram approached the schematics with obvious fascination. This technology could revolutionize the galaxy. Travel times could be reduced by 90%. Energy scarcity would become obsolete. The potential applications are limitless. Which is exactly why we need to be careful, Chen warned. The Catharans are aggressive, but they are not stupid. If they acquire this technology before they learn wisdom, they could become an even greater threat. We need to strengthen the Council's defenses while working toward a peaceful resolution. Peaceful? Kreshtar growled. After what they have done? They have conquered worlds, enslaved populations, destroyed cultures. They deserve no mercy. Chen's eyes hardened. I have seen what total war looks like, Commander. I have fought in battles where billions died. I have given orders that resulted in the deaths of people under my command. I know the cost of victory, and I know the price of revenge. If we can end this without more bloodshed, we will try. But if the Catharans refuse to see reason, then we will do what is necessary. She looked around the room at all the faces watching her. The Catharan fleet is massing near their home systems. Intelligence suggests they are preparing for a final, all-out assault. They believe they can still win if they commit everything. We need to show them they are wrong before they make that mistake. Ambassador Velthar stepped forward. What do you propose, Admiral? A joint operation, Chen replied. Human forces combined with Council fleets. We share our technology. You provide local knowledge and support. We advance on Catharan space as a unified front. We give them one more chance to surrender peacefully. If they refuse, we end this war decisively and permanently. The chamber erupted in discussion as delegates debated the proposal. Some argued for immediate action, others counseled caution. Through it all, Chen stood patiently, knowing that democracy was slow but necessary. The humans had spent a century under military command out of necessity. It felt good to be part of a larger community again, even if it meant compromising and negotiating. Finally, after hours of debate, the Council reached a decision. They would stand with humanity. They would accept the offered technology and training. They would face the Catharan threat together. The vote was unanimous. As the meeting adjourned, Velthar approached Chen privately. Admiral, may I ask you something personal? Was it worth it? The sacrifice, the years of suffering, the losses you endured? Chen looked at him for a long moment before answering. Ask me again when this is over, Ambassador. When the fighting stops and we can finally rest. Ask me then if it was worth it. Outside the station, human and Council ships began training exercises together. Void technology merged with traditional tactics. Two very different military traditions learned to work as one. And in the distance, the Catharan hegemony prepared for war, unaware that they were about to face something far beyond their understanding. The galaxy was changing and humanity was leading the way. The Catharan home system of Jakar blazed with the light of 1,000,000,000,000 stars, as the largest military fleet ever assembled in galactic history prepared for battle. Supreme Commander Jathok stood aboard his flagship, watching the tactical displays that showed his armada in all its terrible glory. 300,000 warships, everything the hegemony could muster, waited in perfect formation around their homeworld. They will come, he told his officers. The humans and their council pets will come thinking they can defeat us through superior technology. But we have numbers. We have fortifications. We have the will to fight to the last warrior. His second-in-command shifted nervously. Commander, our intelligence reports suggest the human technology is far beyond anything we can counter. Perhaps we should consider the Council's offer of peace terms. Jathok whirled on him, rage burning in all 6 of his eyes. Peace, surrender? We are Catharan. We do not bow to anyone, especially not to species we should have conquered a century ago. We will show these returned humans that numbers still matter. We will drown them in our ships and our blood if necessary. 3 light-years away, the combined human council fleet emerged from void space in perfect synchronization. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, surrounded by holographic displays that showed the full scope of both fleets. 120,000 human warships, 40,000 council vessels, all working together as a single unified force. Long-range sensors confirm Catharan deployment, her tactical officer reported. They have fortified the entire system. Weapons platforms on every moon and asteroid, minefields across all major approach vectors. This is going to be their final stand. Chen nodded slowly. Open a channel. All frequencies. I want every Catharan to hear this. When the channel opened, she spoke with the authority of someone who had commanded fleets in impossible battles. Supreme Commander Jathok, this is Admiral Chen. We are here to offer you one final opportunity for peace. Stand down your forces. Release your prisoners. Accept the Council's terms. There does not need to be more death today. The response came quickly, and Jathok's voice dripped with contempt. You think you can frighten us with your void tricks, human? You are outnumbered 3 to 1. Our warriors are ready to die for the hegemony. Can you say the same about your soft Council allies? Commander Kreshtar, commanding the Council's battle group from his flagship, growled at the insult. The Catharan coward speaks of courage while hiding behind his planet's shields. Let us show him what real warriors can do. Chen considered her options. The Catharans were not going to surrender. They had committed too much, boasted too loudly. Their pride would kill them if nothing else did. Very well, Commander Jathok. We tried diplomacy. Now you will see what humanity learned in the void. She turned to her fleet commanders. All ships implement Battle Plan Omega. Council forces follow human lead and provide support fire. Remember your training. Watch each other's backs. And let us end this war today. The human fleet moved first, ships vanishing from normal space and reappearing scattered throughout the Catharan defensive perimeter. The maneuver was impossible by conventional physics, but void drives did not care about conventional physics. Suddenly, the Catharan advantage of defensive positions meant nothing as enemies appeared behind their lines. Beside their stations and above their capital ships, the space around Jakar erupted into chaos. Human ships fired void weapons that phased through shields and tore molecular bonds apart. Catharan vessels returned fire with plasma cannons and kinetic weapons, their shots powerful but useless against energy fields that existed partially in another dimension. For every human ship that took damage, 10 Catharan vessels were destroyed. But the Catharans had numbers, and they were not cowards. They pressed forward with suicidal courage, ramming human ships when their weapons proved ineffective. They detonated their own vessels as proximity bombs. They fought with a desperation born of knowing they faced extinction. The Council forces joined the battle with precision strikes, their ships enhanced with basic void shields and improved weapons. Commander Kreshtar led his warriors in a devastating assault on the Catharan left flank, breaking through their lines and destroying supply stations. His people roared their war cries as they fought, finally able to strike back against the enemy that had terrorized the galaxy. Aboard the Indomitable, Admiral Chen coordinated the battle with calm efficiency. She had fought in larger battles in worse conditions, against enemies far more terrifying than the Catharans, but she felt no satisfaction in the slaughter unfolding before her. Every destroyed ship represented hundreds or thousands of lives ended. Every explosion was someone's family member dying in fire and vacuum. "Admiral, Catharan reinforcements are entering the system," her tactical officer reported. Another 50,000 ships. They must have called in every vessel they had scattered across their conquered territories. "Adjust formation. Send battle groups 3 and 5 to intercept. Order Council forces to concentrate on the orbital platforms. We need to eliminate their static defenses." The battle expanded into a three-dimensional nightmare of destruction. Ships exploded in brilliant flashes. Debris fields expanded at relativistic speeds. The vacuum of space filled with radiation, plasma, and the screams of dying warriors transmitted on open channels. Commander Kreshitar's flagship took heavy damage from a Catharan suicide run. His shields flickered and failed, and his hull breached in 3 locations. But the old warrior refused to abandon his post. "All power to weapons," he roared. "If we die like warriors. For the Council. For our allies." A human destroyer phased into position beside him, its void shields extending to cover the damaged Council ship. Together they fought off the Catharan attackers until repair crews could seal the breaches. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out as human and Council forces protected each other, fought for each other, and died for each other. The tide slowly turned against the Catharans. Their numbers advantage evaporated as human technology and Council determination overwhelmed their defenses. Supreme Commander Jathok watched his empire crumble, his fleets destroyed, his dreams of conquest turned to ash and debris. "Fall back to the final defensive line," he ordered desperately. "Protect the homeworld. We cannot let them reach our civilians." But Admiral Chen had no intention of slaughtering civilians. As the Catharan fleet collapsed, she issued new orders. "All ships cease fire on retreating vessels. Focus only on ships that continue to engage. We are here to end a war, not commit genocide." The change in tactics confused the Catharans at first. Ships that tried to flee were allowed to escape. Only those that continued fighting were targeted. Slowly, understanding dawned across the enemy fleet. The humans were offering mercy. More and more Catharan ships powered down their weapons and began broadcasting surrender signals. Entire battle groups withdrew from the fight and regrouped near their homeworld, their commanders finally accepting the inevitable. The war was over. They had lost. Supreme Commander Jathok sat in his command chair, staring at the displays that showed less than 20,000 of his 300,000 ships still functional. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders that would never come. He had gambled everything on this battle and lost. The hegemony was broken. "Commander Jathok, order your remaining forces to stand down. This war is over. You fought bravely, but you were fighting for the wrong cause. Conquest and domination only lead to more suffering. We learned that lesson the hard way." Jathok felt centuries of pride and arrogance crumble. He had believed the Catharans were superior, that their might gave them the right to rule. Now he saw the truth. Real strength was not about domination, but about protection. Real courage was not about conquest, but about sacrifice. "We surrender," he said quietly, the words bitter in his mouth. The Catharan hegemony surrenders unconditionally. The formal surrender took hours to process as Catharan ships across the system powered down weapons and accepted Council security teams. The human fleet maintained its positions but did not fire another shot. Chen had meant what she said about ending the war, not seeking revenge. The casualty reports came in slowly. 15,000 Council ships destroyed or heavily damaged, 3,000 human vessels lost, over 200,000 Catharan ships destroyed. Millions of lives ended in a battle that could have been avoided if pride and ambition had not clouded judgment. Ambassador Velthar stood in the observation deck of his ship, watching the battlefield littered with debris and bodies. Commander Kreshtar, his wounds bandaged and his ship barely functional, joined him. "We won," the warrior said simply. "But the cost was high." "Victory always has a price," Velthar replied. "The question is whether the price was worth paying. Today we saved trillions of lives that would have suffered under Catharan rule. Today we showed the galaxy that aggression will be met with justice. I think the price, heavy as it is, was worth paying." Aboard the Indomitable, Admiral Chen received reports from across the fleet. The human civilian ships had remained safely outside the battle zone and would now begin the process of returning to former human territories. Refugee populations that had fled Catharan conquest could begin going home. The galaxy could begin healing. But Chen felt no sense of victory. She had seen too much death. commanded too many battles, lost too many people. She walked to her private quarters and stood before the window that showed the blue-green sphere of Earth, rotating peacefully below. Home. After 100 years of fighting, after a century of survival in hell, she was looking at Earth again. A chime at her door interrupted her thoughts. Commander Hayes entered, his expression showing the same exhaustion she felt. "Admiral, the Council is requesting your presence for a formal ceremony. They want to officially welcome humanity back and honor our service." "Tell them I will attend," Chen said, "but first I need a few minutes alone." When Hayes left, she opened a secure channel to the entire human fleet. Her face appeared on every screen in every ship, seen by every human who had fought and survived. "People of Earth, people of humanity, this is Admiral Chen. Today we achieved what we set out to do a century ago. We protected the innocent. We defeated those who would threaten the galaxy. We came home, but we paid a heavy price for this victory. 3,000 ships and everyone aboard them will not see Earth again. Remember them. Honor them. They died so that others could live." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "We are home now. We can finally rest. We can rebuild. We can be more than warriors and soldiers. But we must never forget what we learned in the void. We must never forget that strength without compassion is tyranny, and that power without responsibility is destruction. We are the defenders of this galaxy now, not by conquest but by choice. Let us be worthy of that responsibility." The transmission ended, and Chen returned to watching Earth. Behind her, the fleets began the long process of standing down, of caring for the wounded, of mourning the dead. The war was over. Humanity was home, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Years would pass before the full impact of humanity's return was understood. The void technology would revolutionize transportation, energy production, and defense. The Catharan hegemony would be reformed into a peaceful confederation, their aggression channeled into productive endeavors. The Council would grow stronger, more unified, protected by human fleets that asked nothing in return except friendship. And somewhere in the depths of space, in dimensions beyond normal understanding, the void stirred. The entities were gone, the rifts sealed, but the dimension itself remained. And humanity had learned to use it, to channel it, to make it part of themselves. They had become something new, something that existed between the normal and the impossible. They had become void-forged, and the galaxy would remember their name forever.